good morning. I'm very pleased today. I'm very excited because I always like to be in front of powerful people, and that's the case today. So I'm talking to one of the most powerful women of Africa, and certainly most powerful women of the world at the moment. So Damilola, so welcome today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's really exciting to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So I have to say, Damilola, that your CV is very impressive, and that will make any woman or man salivating. So you were the first general manager of the Lagos Electricity Board. You were responsible to bring into the Lagos state 55 megawatt of power. That's very impressive. But you're also the first female managing director of the Nigeria Rural Electricity Electrification Agency, and you were also in charge of running an 18-month, I don't know how you did it, 18-month negotiation to put together a facility fund of 550 million with the objective to deliver to fast track mini grid construction and solar home system. So it's very, very impressive. I think there is no accident that AEF, Africa Energy Forum, has chosen you as the honorary chairwoman for this summit. I think they chose well, right? What do you think?
I hope so. And it's about time that we have a woman as the chairperson of the AEF. So I'm again excited to take on the role.
Oh, that's it. That's where we are. As I say, I'm sure you will inspire many women and also men like me. So in the job that you are doing. So let me ask you a very simple question. Simple question because you're a smart woman and I'm sure you figure it out. So what do you see as the big opportunities for Africa for the energy transition? So and how can we seize them? So that's the most important. Not just see them, but how do we seize them?
I mean, you can't really talk about in the African context clean energy transition without talking about energy access, right? And it's really important that we make that link and decide that how will African countries also get to net zero carbon in 2000 by 2050 and what are the transitionary fuels that get us there. We already see like today in terms of the population that can deal with energy access. You can do that doing renewables off grid, but there's also an industrialization story. It's not just about minimum power in Africa. So it's really important for us to plan and use data to see how are we going to transition from now to 2050 using cleaner energy. We already know in terms of job creation in terms of renewable compared to the fossil equivalent is like 3.5 times um, more jobs. And then, but the key thing is how do we get sufficient energy to Africans, right? How do we really leave no one behind? And how do we make sure that 565 million people that don't have access to electricity, but more importantly, another 900 million that don't have access to clean cooking, how do we make sure we do that by 2030? And that's what my whole entire team is obsessed about. And globally, I think how to make that conversation clean is what we're focusing on. The other part of it is with the UK government, with COP. Really, really excited. The UK government has taken on an energy transition council, and they haven't shied away of looking at energy access as well. We need to bring these up to the global conversation because right now we need something on the realm of about 40 billion a year globally to achieve universal access. And in Africa alone, the largest program is the one you mentioned that I worked with, Nigerian Electrification Project, which is just 550 billion. So it just shows you the huge gap there is. So again, I just want to emphasize for me, it's really important that when we talk about transition, we also talk about access and what are the different things we're going to do to get us there.
Okay, so that's excellent. And you mentioned the UK government and the COP26, and I'm quite pleased because I read recently that you're going to be co-chairing this event with the UK government. So that's fantastic news, and I want to say congratulations because I'm sure you work hard for that as well. So if I now come back to the context where we're in at the moment, so we're talking about COVID-19, so the pandemic. So for you, because you have a global vision of things, so how has Africa responded to the pandemic? Is there any positive example that you can sort of shine some light through on it?
I mean, definitely. I'm really proud to say that my home country, has decided in their sustainability plan, which is their post-COVID plan, to have 5 million solar connections, which will in turn provide power for 25 million to 30 million people. This is huge. Also, removing fossil fuel subsidies is also a big deal, and getting to a point where we're getting better with cost-reflective tariffs. So countries are responding in terms of what does recover better mean. And what we're trying to do in Sustainable Energy for All is to say that you should recover better with sustainable energy, not just because of climate, but also because of economic growth, which is what countries really want to see. Another key point or opportunity that we've also seen is in terms of localization. So, we're trying to encourage everybody to go clean, go green, but how are they going to get the equipment and the materials if there's an issue with the supply chain, especially during COVID? So not necessarily manufacturing, but large scale assembly we feel can happen in continent, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, to support the solar market and focusing on, I guess, three main elements: the panels, the inverters, and also the lithium batteries. So that's also a big deal. But what COVID has shown is that this issue of energy access is so, so important because there's a large population globally that just can't stay at home because they have no access to electricity and to clean cooking. And it has shown just how connected we are and how we need the data as well to be able to make informed decisions on where people are, what are their energy needs, both in healthcare and also electrification.
So excellent, excellent. I have to say, Damilora, so you really melted my heart there when you mentioned about the issue of localization. Because one thing that I have to say, in my own case, so with my company, so working in project development, but also project origination. So one thing that we have highlighted is the fact that we clearly want Africa not to be just a market, but it has to be a player. And for that to make it happen, there's a number of things that need to happen. And one thing that we don't talk enough about is how do you actually make sure that there is enough skilled and local project developer in the continent, not just people coming from other part of the world, which is nothing wrong with that. But having them as well in Africa is very good. I think on our own case, we've launched a program to train people digitally and for them to become better solar developer. And the reason I'm talking to you about that, you highlighted some of the good example that Nigeria has taken to respond to the pandemic. Now the question becomes, how do we make sure that we can scale those solutions so it doesn't just now relate to one country doing one thing? So how can we scale that across the 55 countries that the continent has, and also beyond?
I mean, I'm not going to get too hooked up on which country starts what, but what is really, really important is that we have to have Africa to Africa learning, right? Africa to Africa capacity building. Like I said, we run a program in Nigeria. There's no reason why the Ethiopian team can't learn from the Nigerian team and then the team in DRC as well, and they, work with the World Bank program. But another critical part that makes things a lot easy is the access to data. It's totally different when you're telling the private sector that these are where the communities are that need to be electrified. This is their availability to pay models. This is their willingness to pay. This is how much energy they actually need. These are people we can use mini grids on, solar home systems on, or even connect to the grid. That information needs to be there. The data is key, and the data for me is like gold dust, honestly. The other part that's really important is data on health, because we're now in this COVID stage, right? And we are going to get a vaccine at a certain point. So we should be able to use data as well to pinpoint where are the institutions. Like, we still don't know. Is the vaccine going to be at minus 90 degrees? That's a lot of energy. Is the vaccine going to be administered once or twice, right? So just that, if you think about just that logistic network, right? To be able to make sure that the vaccine basically takes on as much of the population as possible. That can all be done by data modeling now, to prepare African governments for when it does come. And I think that is my role as well, is to emphasize that urgency. So people even understand the figure, right? Is it going to cost me $10 billion? Is it going to cost me $500,000? We still don't know that. So that's why it's really important for the global community to respond to African and the African governments also work. And this has just shown how, all these things need to be inclusive now. There's no more, we're going to design these models somewhere in Europe and then come and implement it in Africa. It just doesn't work. It needs to be driven by Africans. It needs to be spearheaded by Africans, and African governments need to understand it to also allow the private sector, which hopefully will also be locals. It's not good enough for people to just come in, provide solutions and leave. We really need that local content. Is very, very key for me. And you touch on one last thing, capacity building, which is something I'm obsessed about, especially in young women. So we have a program called Women at the Forefront, just training young women for the clean energy sector. Because if it's going to actually really boom, like how we hope, we really need to make sure that young Africans ready to take on these jobs.
Okay, so that's great. So let me move into sort of a different topic. I know you mentioned about data, so I'll come back to data in a minute. So as I say, you are the honorary chairwoman for the Africa Energy Forum this year. And the theme is definitely looking at how innovation and technology can support the human development. And one of the big success of energy access over the recent years is actually the off-grid market. I know the off-grid market, I think there's over 1 gigawatt now. And for people that don't know what that represents, 1 gigawatt, that's the size of a small nuclear power plant. And that can provide access to closely to by 1 million people. So it will depend on the needs and the load of the population. But talking about the off-grid market, and I know you've been very much involved. We talked about the program that you launched in your home country, Nigeria, and I know you support many other initiatives. How important do you think off-grid is for the continent?
I mean, off-grid is critical. Again, it goes back to the data. A lot of the population that still have not been connected to electrification, possibly about 50 to 60% of those can be connected off-grid to satisfy their needs. And as you're talking about innovation and technology, I guess the key thing is just the innovation as we've gone from lead acid batteries to now lithium batteries, and now they're talking about second generation batteries. So I really think storage is really that game changer of how we're going to develop. We're going to have more efficient panels. Hopefully we're going to have panels that are probably 500, 600 watts soon, taking up a smaller space. The inverters are going to be more efficient. The literally, it's its own little smart grid. If you think about it, it's its own little mini utility that can talk to each other. There's a lot of stuff that's already happening on phone with payment platforms. And I almost believe that we've learned from a lot of mistakes we've done on grid and we've pushed it to the off grid sector. But I think there's no boundaries. But again, the innovation is driven by scale, right? So it's not driven by I'm going to connect 20 people here and 30 people here. We need to be talking in the millions. If we talk in the millions, we can drive costs down. The problem is that even though solar costs have gone down, it's not reflected in project development in Africa. And you have to think why. And the reason is because anybody who wants to buy 10 panels is going to China. That is not effective, right? But if we had somewhere on continent, right, that, Benin is just buying from Nigeria or Senegal is just, buying from Ghana, it changes the dynamics, but it has to be scalable, right? And that's where countries have to also put, in their regulations that, off-grid is something they're going to do. But even rooftop solar, even CNI solar, all those things are taking off. But the only way they can really be cost effective is with scale. And that's why we're just really, really encouraging larger players and bigger scale things. And again, I'd just like to stress, this is not kind of saying, oh, we don't need the utility. I don't believe that at all. I think the utility plays a very, very key role in electrification in Africa. And I also think they can play a big role in what you strangely call the off-grid. There are places in their network that's just not cost effective to connect to their main grid. And they could, a lot of utilities are now looking to partner with off-grid developers to provide power to those places. So just really looking forward to the next 2-3 years. I think we're going to see a lot of different models coming to place. I think we're going to have more in terms of subsidies that we get. I think it's going to be focused more on results-based financing, so people don't get paid subsidy until they actually connect the customer and nothing before. Which again is something I'm a big fan on. It's what worked in Nigeria with the World Bank program that we have. And I think that's what a lot of people are saying. We don't have the time for these huge procurements that take a few years, and it's not really as cost effective at the end of the day because they have huge teams managing them. But the focus should be connecting the customer. That should be the focus.
Okay. Let me just ask a very quick question as well, because for people that will obviously catch the conversation just right now, so just to say that I'm talking to Damilola Ogunbiyi. You are the CEO and the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for the Sustainable Energy for All. I wanted to say, could you, in few words, just remind all of us, including me, so what is the role of Sustainable Energy for All, and what are the key actions that you are doing?
Okay, so the mandate of Sustainable Energy for All is to make sure you achieve Sustainable Development Goal 7, which is affordable, modern energy for all, basically everybody globally. Currently, there are about 789 million people who don't have access to electrification, about 2.8 billion that don't have access to clean cooking. So there's a big divide. And we also have to encourage renewable energy. And our role is basically to support sovereigns and private sector get this done. I think that is and to make sure that we drive policy and advocacy at the global level to ensure that, people actually do what they say, using obviously the UN as well. So that is the mandate of the organization. We have different pillars to do that. We have energy diplomacy, which is international relations. We have, as you said, data with integrated energy planning. We have training, which is one of the programs we call Women at the Forefront. We have powering healthcare. So there's a lot of spectrums of different tasks that we put together. But the real aim is, how do we make sure when 2030 comes, we can actually say that there's sustainable energy for everybody globally?
Excellent. And I'm proud to say that apart from being close to you because we have a common friend together, we're also close in the objective and the mission that we have for ourselves. So I want to ask you a little bit of a cheeky question, so hopefully you would allow me. So when I started my career at the start, I was always very excited to get close to multilateral organizations, international organizations like yours, but I could see the more established professional and player were less so. And later I found out because they don't always have a good view of organizations like yourself because they think they are too bureaucratic and not pragmatic enough. I just wanted to ask you, is it true? So if not, can you dispel that myth?
I'm so sorry. I didn't catch the last maybe 10 seconds. My internet went funny. Yeah.
That's fine. I just wanted to say, so is the belief that organizations like yours, basically UN-led organization, is it true that they are too bureaucratic and not close enough to the ground?
Well, obviously, I don't think so. I mean, luckily with the UN, there's an infrastructure with UNDP as well. But there is a need when you're talking about things to be closer to the ground. So in terms of SE4, one of the key things, that we're doing is having an office in continent, right? And trying to employ and hire more Africans that understand the conversation. And any African country that we are working in, we make sure that there are Africans there. So I think my organization is quite different because we're very nimble, and I'm really lucky that my board also trusts me to make some key decisions. So again, it might just be luck, but I think that right now is a decade of action at the UN, right? So you really need to show what you've been doing and how you've been doing, and the Secretary General holds it very, very personally and, important. So, there's literally a tracking system of how you're working. I do think that, as time goes on, you will see, but the focus now is all on implementation. And we just need to have that mindset and to move forward.
Excellent. And as you said, the goal is to bring sustainable, reliable, and affordable electricity to every person in Africa and across the globe. And then there's one data that pretty much everybody know now in the sector. So it's actually the amount of finance that is needed to bridge this gap and reach the full access for electricity by 2030. There's only a decade now left. That you mentioned implementation. That's what it's all about. And it's actually the amount of finance. I think every year the African continent, from last estimate that I've seen, maybe I may be wrong there, you can correct me please, it's about 29 billion that we need between now and 2030 to make sure that we can reach this goal, which is obviously huge, and we definitely far off of this targets. So, but I know as well that there are some innovative finance models that are emerging, right? And then I wanted to know whether you've been privy to that, and if yes, can you tell us what are the most promising that you've seen so far in terms of the financial model?
I mean, yes, we do need 29 billion, but we need 29 billion every single year for the next 10 years. In terms of financing model, it depends on which side you're on the table, is on the private sector side or the public sector side. The truth is we need a lot of different types of financing, from climate financing to philanthropic financing in terms of grant support, to DFIs, financing government, to public financing. Like I said, to get things done, and if you're working on a subsidy type model, it's results-based financing, I think, is the most innovative and the quickest way to get things done. However, in terms of financing, we need all different types of blended financing, and we shouldn't be so fixated on getting the perfect one, because there's nothing like perfection. We should just get started. So I guess what we don't have time for is spending 12 months or 18 months developing programs for financing. Does that make sense? We need to streamline it, get it done, learn from the mistakes and move on. I'm a big believer in lessons learned than not doing anything at all.
Okay, great. And then another question on finance. So as you say, obviously we need to be moving fast, and I wanted to know about those financial model. I know you mentioned the results-based financing, and visibly that's at least one of them that is quite promising in terms of the result that they are producing. So what about green bond? Have you had any view on that, or is it not appropriate for Africa?
There's nothing that's not appropriate, honestly. It's very easy. I can't say this works and that doesn't work. I was very fortunate. I guess it's probably the first green bond that was effective in Nigeria, was what I was used to provide power to 7 universities, large-scale IPPs between 1 and 9 megawatts, solar hybrid system. So again, it's not easy enough to say which one or what you like. It's what serves which goal, which brings back to the data. If you're powering for a public institution, it's completely different if you're powering for rural households, which is completely different if you're powering for commercial institutions, right? And again, it's really important to understand these markets and understand which type of finance works with what, because it's not everything that needs to be subsidized, right? There are things that are actually commercially viable. There are things government needs to do, but the majority of the sector should be private sector led. And how their finances can be different. There's vendor financing models. So yeah, I think that's my key thing, that we can't at this stage. It's too critical to. It's better to have everything on the table than to start picking and choosing what might work.
So as I say, you definitely have a unique CV, and like I say, that's why you're the honorary chairwoman for AEF. So let me round up this conversation by another topic, which is very important for you and to some respect as well for me. It's looking at the impact of the climate change, but also the impact of the energy poverty on a specific group of people. So I'm talking about women, obviously, and I'm sure this is something you very much understand. And to bring the solution together, we definitely need to make sure that we are engaging enough with women so that we can bring everybody good. I think the former First Lady of the United States used to say that, if we're going to be solving a big issue, so we can't leave half the population aside. So that's the women. So how are you addressing this question, making sure that women are definitely at the heart of all the initiative, the solution building that are happening around you and for organizations that you're dealing with?
Well, anybody knows me knows I'm pretty obsessed with gender. As I spoke about, I have an entire program about training young women, not just because they're women, but because data has shown that they're 23% more effective than men in clean energy. So it's important to encourage. But back to what you were saying with energy poverty, it's especially when it comes to clean cooking, there's a lot of information out there that's really important for people to know as it relates to gender-based violence as well. And so for me, it's critical not just to look at the electrification, but also to look at the gender-based violence. And there's this information and data that is important. So if a woman is given constant sustainable energy for her business, she can earn 59% more. Which puts her finally on par with her male counterparts and things like that. In my organization, most of our groups are led by women anyway, and in every single thing we do, we actually have to show what is the gender lens, unless that activity wouldn't go through. So again, it's just critical in everything you do. I'm constantly engaging with women, particularly younger women, because I do think that they are the next generation and they're the key to a lot of these issues. So for me, that kind of 18 to 23, I think if you can get them there and get them excited and get them motivated and get them into the workforce, you're going to really see key opportunities. But it's also important to hold companies accountable that don't employ young women, right? I don't employ women at all. And ask the question why, because it still happens, and there's still many fora than I'm on, even at this global level, that I'm probably the only African woman on there. And again, it's what you can change at all different levels to influence it. And it's still very unfortunate that most African women have to work 3 or 4 times harder than their male counterparts to get these things done. So changing that narrative for the next generation would be amazing. And it's something I hope to do.
Damilola, I have to say, before these conversations, I knew it was going to be special and I knew it was going to be inspirational. And I can definitely tell you that you have delivered. So I have no doubt in my mind that in the current role that you are occupying, you're going to be doing a grand job. So it was a pleasure for me to be talking to you today, looking about your thought on how Africa is responding to the pandemic, the role of the Sustainable Energy for Role, and also how you're going to be accompanying the Africa Energy Forum this year to make sure that we can deliver value to all the people that are listening to us. So thank you very much and have a fantastic day.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you for having me.